Hello everyone and welcome to Retro Brick Reviews, where today we'll be taking a look at LEGO Dimensions set number 71348, the Hermione Granger Fun Pack. This set comes with 64 pieces, one minifigure, and when it was available, retailed for around $12 to $15 in the United States. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the minifigure and all three builds of Buckbeak. So without further ado, let's just get started. Starting off with the included minifigure, here we have Hermione Granger. And, well, I guess starting off with her, we have her toy tag, which I think is pretty nice. It has the Gryffindor colors with the dark red and gold. On the front, you have the Deathly Hallows symbol, and on the back, you have the Gryffindor crest. It's very similar to Harry's toy tag, but honestly, that's alright, since they are both members of Gryffindor House, and from the same franchise, obviously, so I think it's good that they have similar-looking tags. But anyway, moving on to the figure itself, Hermione here actually isn't too complex. She has no leg printing, and the face print is one that LEGO started using in 2010, although we will get to that in a minute. But we'll start with the torso print, which is the real exclusive part of this figure. This set is the only way to get this torso, and it is based off of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, the movie, the outfit she was wearing during the Battle of Hogwarts, which is a pretty nice choice. I think the jean jacket print looks pretty good, as well as the sort of pink hooded undershirt. I mean, like, you have obviously the black lining, you have a lot of silver for the buttons on the jacket and the zipper of the hoodie, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not a very complex print. Most of the lines are quite thick, but I think it looks good enough. Hermione does have back printing, but we'll get more of that in a minute when I take the hairpiece off. But starting off with Hermione's primary facial expression, it looks alright. I mean, I've never felt as though the primary face looked all that much like Emma Watson, but it's an alright likeness. I feel as though the eyes and eyebrows are pretty good. The mouth, though, is what throws it off. I don't know, I think maybe the lips are a bit too thick. Maybe. I don't know. It's an alright print, don't get me wrong, I just feel as though the mouth makes it so that it doesn't look all that much like Miss Emma Watson. If we turn the head around, though, we have a more annoyed expression, which I think is much better. Here, I feel as though this looks pretty perfectly like the Hermione that we all know, and it is pretty nice. Now, really, the last thing to talk about on the figure before we get to the back printing is the hairpiece, which is the same hair that LEGO has been using for Hermione since 2007, or at least the same mold, but there is one major difference, which you can probably tell. Her hair is no longer brown, it's this nougat color. And honestly, I do not know what LEGO was thinking here. Like, you could put forth the case that this color is more accurate to the later movies, but I wholeheartedly disagree. I mean, yeah, maybe her hair has gotten a bit lighter over time, but it's still much more brown than it is caramel. I mean, this just doesn't look right for a minifigure, and honestly, when looking at this almost doesn't even look like Hermione at first glance because of it, and it certainly doesn't help that the hairstyle is still completely off. I mean, back in 2010, this was sort of acceptable when LEGO didn't have very many hairpieces, but this figure came out in 2017. LEGO could have easily made a new piece, or if they didn't feel like it, there were many they could have chosen from. My personal pick from existing parts would have been the Pop Star hairpiece, which, by the way, is what LEGO's using for the new Hermione collectible minifigure. So, yeah, don't really know what's going on here with the hairpiece, but it's alright, at least for the shaping. I mean, I've never liked the weird braid there, but it could be worse. I mean, again, this hairpiece was alright, and I guess that technically it still is. It's really just the color that I absolutely despise. And then just looking at the back printing, I mean, it's just some thick lines, and you can see the hood of the shirt. Really not much, but overall, Hermione here is a perfectly fine figure. Forgot to mention, her accessory is her wand, which is just a 3-long brown bar. Yeah. So yeah, that's the figure included with this pack. A perfectly fine figure of Hermione, except the hairpiece, which is pretty terrible. So yeah, so that's Hermione, and now let's move on to the primary build of the fun pack, that being Buckbeak the Hippogriff. So here we have Buckbeak, who, in my opinion, is one of the nicer LEGO Dimensions builds. Although if I do have one complaint, it's definitely that the color varies way too much. I feel as though LEGO should have maybe just gone with the light and dark gray. I feel as though the white doesn't really blend in, or maybe white and light gray. I don't know, I feel as though light gray should stay and one of the accents, but I feel as though having both accent colors definitely throws it off quite a bit. But it's still a very well done build in terms of shaping, regardless of the colors. Starting off with the head, you can see that I feel as though that is very well shaped up with the beak. You sort of have some rounding to the head, as well as sort of the bottom jaw, I guess, or, well, the body leading up to the head. I don't know, the cheese slope looks pretty good. You have the eyeball, which looks pretty well done. You have a couple of ears here at the back, using just a couple of tooth pieces. On the front legs, those are bulked up by these white tooth pieces, which are sort of like, they create some feathering detail, which I like. Obviously, the front talons are just clips, which I feel work pretty well. It uses the Chima eagle wing piece, which I think is a pretty nice use. And if we sort of fold those out of the way, you can see that the back legs are pretty well built up, and I like the stud there to just create a bit of muscle detailing. And these can actually pose. I mean, they're just attached by one stud, so you can actually sort of move the legs forward and back a little, although it is pretty hard to do so on the toy tag, so I wouldn't really recommend it. No tail on Buckbeak, which is a bit off, but, I mean, to be honest, there's so much detail going on that they got right that I don't really mind that they missed out on the tail. It's a pretty small detail, to be honest. And the reason I didn't take Buckbeak off of his stand is because, while most LEGO Dimensions builds just have, you know, a 2x2 round brick for the stand and maybe a bit of other stuff built up, this guy has a couple of jumpers and then a bunch of different clear bricks and plates. Pretty complex, pretty annoying. I didn't really feel like taking him off of the stand. If you build this guy, I would recommend designing him on the stand or off, because while it certainly is doable to get him off the stand, it is very annoying, especially considering that you definitely don't want any marks on your clear pieces, which could happen if you have to pull out your brick separator. So, yeah. Overall, though, Buckbeak is a very well done build. In terms of just the actual shaping of him, again, excluding the color, probably one of the best that LEGO Dimensions has turned out in its 2-year run. The coloring, again, is a bit off, although you could obviously use pieces from your own collection to fix this issue. Maybe, you know, I would get rid of the white, but yeah. Anyway, also forgot to mention, for scaling, I honestly feel as though this guy scales pretty well with a minifigure. Obviously, a minifigure can't ride him, but obviously, in reality, a human, if Buckbeak was to be ridden by a human, then they would just put their legs over the sides of the body, so that isn't really an issue. And honestly, this guy is that's the thing. This Buckbeak is realistically proportioned to a minifigure, which kind of makes it out of scale with a minifigure, if you get what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that he is very well done, very accurate to the film, and a pretty great build. I would definitely recommend, even if you don't feel like getting the set, I would probably just look up the instructions online and try to put him together with your own pieces, because he is a very worthwhile little hippogriff build. So yeah, that is Buckbeak. Now let's move on to the secondary build, that being the giant owl. So, Buckbeak may have been good, but in my opinion, the giant owl is one of the best builds of LEGO Dimensions, and easily the best build from this fun pack. I mean, it just looks perfect. I mean, I guess starting off, you can see that it has sort of a little brick-built perch, which I like. I'm glad that the stand actually is something, instead of just being a bunch of extra pieces being used up. And I mean, technically it is, but I mean, I'm glad that they did actually make it look like something at the very least. And, starting off, you can see that the talons are just a couple of clips, but it works. For sort of the body, you can see that they use curved pieces both on the sides and the front. Some studs not on top techniques used there, as well as some cheese slopes. And it does create this very round look, even though, I mean, there are some pretty large just cutouts here, like, I mean, between these two curved pieces below the cheese slope, that's just a straight 90-degree angle, but it looks round, which is good. Yeah. The head, oh, and also you do have a couple of tooth pieces on the sides, which just create a bit more feathery detail, which I like. The head, though, I mean, it's very rectangular. It's 2x3. And, I mean, aside from a bit of rounding on the top, like, it is very rectangular, but honestly, I still think it looks pretty good. You just have a couple of studs attached on headlight bricks for the eyes, and that little tooth piece for the beak. And yeah, it just looks good. This would be really good for, like, a mini head wig. If you wanted to switch up the colors to all white and just set this on your desk, this would be a pretty great build. The wings are folded down, which isn't... I mean, like, that's not the most ideal positioning. Honestly, I feel as though if you were going to build this, then maybe you could modify it to have the wings, like, on the sides of the model. I don't know, just a thought. But yeah, if there is one problem with this, it's the back, because this is really only meant to be viewed from the front. Yeah, you can see from the back that the stand definitely goes a bit more into reusing other pieces, but going past that, you can see that if I pull this off of the stand, which again is a bit complex, but this time I think it's worth it. You can see that you do have this little plate sticking off of the back, so even if you were to, say, take off this 1x3 piece and replace that with just a tile, and maybe replace these cylinders with bricks, then you would still have that, which is a bit annoying, but heck, you could even fix that, so really, with some simple modification, you could pretty much make this perfect. So, yeah. Really, this build is as perfect as it could possibly be, and all of these slight issues are easily fixable if you feel like it. So, yeah, this build is pretty much perfect. Again, just like with Buckbeak, I would definitely recommend looking up the instructions for this so that you could build it yourself. And, yeah, this is just a really great build. I love it, so I guess now let's just move on to the final build of this pack, that being the Fierce Falcon. So here we are with the third and final build of this pack, the Fierce Falcon, and in my opinion, this is definitely the least of the three builds. To start with, you can see that once again it has a stand, and this one of the three definitely feels the most like them using up a ton of random parts. I mean, like, what's this thing at the back? The answer is a Travis brick and a couple cylinders that they couldn't fit into the main build. I mean, in general, this thing just doesn't look that good. Like, I mean, the shape of it is just odd. Like, the legs are towards the front. Like, even if the legs were bent normally, which is impossible with this build, but even if they were just straight down, it would be coming they would be below that white plate, meaning that there would be a solid 3 studs worth of feathers and stuff behind the legs, which is just strange. And the head is very small compared to the body. I mean, the legs are well done, but they're practically just the hippogriff legs. So, yeah, I mean, it has wings. I feel as though from the front it doesn't look good because it sort of almost has like a weird W shape to it. I don't know, I feel as though this is definitely not a very good third build. I mean, it's still better than a lot of other Dimensions build number 3s. It's just that this one, I don't know, I feel as though it doesn't look too good. And maybe they should have gone back to the drawing board a bit for it. I don't know, but that's really all I have to say about this one. It's just sort of mediocre. Yeah. So I guess now let's move on to the final verdict for the Hermione Granger Fun Pack. So, for a price of $12 to $15, would I recommend the LEGO Dimensions Hermione Granger Fun Pack? I'm not too sure about that. Like, a year ago, I would have said yes in a heartbeat, because, back last year, this was one of only 2 Harry Potter sets to have been released in about 5 years. So, yeah, I mean, when this was the only way to get a Hermione figure, it was an alright figure, and you got this nice Buckbeak build with it, so yeah. However, of course, now LEGO has returned to making full-on sets for the Harry Potter lineup, so I feel as though now it's a bit more difficult, because, I mean, the figure has a nice torso, but a torso really isn't enough to warrant getting a set. And, I mean, in terms of gameplay, Hermione plays nearly exactly like every other witch and wizard in LEGO Dimensions, Wicked Witch, and everyone from Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. She's just Harry or Voldemort, but without flight and Parseltongue. She's just Newt, but without the suitcase. She's just Tina, but actually, oh right, yeah, she has intelligence. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that if you were to get Newt and Tina, both Fantastic Beasts packs, then you would have every ability combined. And then you would have every ability Hermione has, because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Hermione just has Tina's ability set, plus intelligence, which Newt has. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. So yeah, in terms of gameplay, Hermione really doesn't offer anything special, and the minifigure isn't either, and I do much prefer both the new young Hermione figure that comes in several of the sets, as well as the collectible minifigure series Hermione that comes out in August. I feel as though that is a much better version of a more mature Hermione. But then, for the build, I mean, no unique prints. Really, I definitely, if I were to recommend this pack on one thing, it would be the build. But really, I would much more recommend just finding the parts yourself to build this out of your own collection, rather than taking the time to, actually taking the time and money to buy the set. Just for the parts, I would just recommend doing the best with what you have. So, yeah, I guess that's my overall rating for this set. It's an alright pack, and if you don't have any other LEGO Harry Potter packs, then this is a perfectly fine set to get, but overall, not too sure about this one. I mean, it's definitely a lower priority, in my opinion, at this point. Although, I mean, at this point, since LEGO Dimensions has been dead for quite a while, now packs are going on pretty good clearance, so if you can see this pack for cheap, I'd go for it. I'm not sure at what price I would call this a must-buy. I guess maybe $8, I'd say just get this right away. But yeah. I guess that's my video. Oh, it's pretty alright set, although nothing in-game stands out too much, and the figure doesn't. And Buckbeak is just a nice build, but nothing exclusive about him. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching this video, though, and I will see all of you in the next one. Farewell.